Well, it's finally time to have a look at what's happening in this country and for you in the year 2022. Already underway and already showing some of its colors. Dare we even have a look, but that's what we're here for, so we're going to be having a look at some of what we can expect in the year ahead. Of course, remember, as the months go by, we'll be looking month by month as what to expect each month and in more detail about some of the things you'll hear here today. And regarding your own year ahead, today we'll just be looking at one or two highlights and something to focus on for the year. And of course, as the months go by, we'll be looking in more detail at your months ahead. But to start looking at this year, everyone always asks the question, is it going to be better than last year? And the last couple of years have been some of the most challenging years in memory, with the global pandemic and all the consequences, as well as everything else happening around the edges of that. To an astrologer, a year that starts on the 1st of January and ends on the 31st of December is just something, a calendar that you hang on your kitchen fridge or something like that. And the idea of this year versus last year is not really a very clear idea. So it is important to remember that time is more like it's flowing along and different things unfold and fade away, and that's really what we're looking at. Although we do mark the very important changes of the seasons, and that's really how we measure the year going by astrologically, by watching the seasons change and seeing what changes on Earth as we do so. So we are already in the season that starts the year, and as I said, it is already beginning to show itself. In this country, we've just had the release of the Zondo report. For the last couple of years, we've been talking about it. We've been wondering, when is anybody going to do anything about whatever might come up at the Zondo report? And of course, the Commission's response was always they had to do the work of uncovering all the information. They didn't have the power to order prosecutions. The National Prosecuting Authority's response was always, we've got to wait until all that is put before us. We can't jump the gun in any kind of way. And the President's response has always been, I can't find that one. At any rate, Zondo has begun to put the cards all out there on the tables, and it is perhaps time for the wheels of justice to start turning. Of course, the problem we now face is that the report is put before the President, who will presumably take as long as possible to deal with it, because not only for all the issues of his strength and his presidency, but also because of his very real and valid fears for what might happen to him, and by which I mean himself as president. These early months of this year are very, very critical and very dangerous for President Cyril Ramaphosa. I referred to it a number of times last year that in the early part of this year we can see some of the knives that were out against him beginning to show themselves again, and that has been what's begun to happen now and will happen again and again during the course of this year. That really means that as more and more details are coming out, and obviously those that are named, and most of them of course are people involved in government, he faces a very real and present danger in one form or another, worst case scenario to his person. That's not so likely to happen, but in the form of all sorts of other attacks that are going to be leveled at him, both in front of and behind the scenes. Later in the year, though, it gets very much worse, and the challenging time, the really critical time for both Ramaphosa and his government, and therefore also the country, is in the last half and especially last quarter of this year. From about August, the heat starts coming up again. With a bit of luck, perhaps that means that come August, we're going to start seeing some prosecutions or attempts by the prosecuting authority to show some action or something like that. It certainly looks again as if it's then that things start getting more dangerous for the president, and certainly by the months of November, December, extremely so. Now, as I said earlier, it's not really to his person that the danger applies, but we know that December is the next ANC elective conference. And as far as the charts look, it looks very bad for the current president. There's an extremely good chance that he will be replaced as leader, and that, as we know, will soon lead to a replacement of president of the country. And maybe we'll see more of that side of the story in next year's chart. But this year we've got the leadership of the ANC, which the leader of the ANC is, traditionally the leader, of course, of the country, and that will eventually lead to those changes. So it's in this year that we see the likely change of leadership. What is interesting, though, about the December period, the elective conference shown in the charts, is that it's not only likely that there will be a replacement of the president, but it's also likely that there will be some surprises, some really unexpected results at that elective conference. Well, unexpected doesn't go terribly far when it comes to the ANC, which has got its own traditions and slow processes that many commentators are able to follow and make predictions about. But perhaps just in the ordinary sense, for example, that the stab in the back won't come from the other side of that very split and divided party, but it will come actually from the president's own camp. That's a good example, and it's what I'm expecting by looking at the charts, that the person who succeeds in the challenge against Ramaphosa in the presidency of the ANC comes from the Ramaphosa side of the party, not the other side, the Zuma side of the party. We've yet to see. Surprises mean surprises, and surprises also mean that astrologers can't always figure out exactly what's going on. All we know is to really expect the unexpected, but that can't be too good for the country. We might need a radical shake-up of government, we do. We need a radical shake-up of presidency, we do. But we all know that in any party we look at, it's very hard to find the kind of strength of leadership that this country sorely needs. So surprises, typically in astrology, are not pleasant surprises, and unfortunately that's probably par for the course with what we can expect for what we have here. So in many ways, the rocky year of the president and the party will, of course, trickle down into the country. We're going to find it quite an unstable year in terms of any sense of policy, leadership, firm decisions going beyond Zondo and corruption. It's going to affect many other things. We're going to see lots of stalling on service delivery and on other matters that the government is supposed to be giving its attention to, because there is much more infighting going on behind the scenes, if that's possible to believe. I mean, we all know how much infighting is going on, or the truth is we don't know how much. There's actually so much more. But this is the year where it really shows so focused in these charts that it's kind of comes to a crunch this year. Now, very late last year, we also saw what has been described as a terrorist attack on the parliamentary precinct. The perpetrator has been charged with terrorism. We even saw an attack, perhaps unrelated, on the Constitutional Court shortly after that. The idea of terrorist attacks, violence, or other kinds of attacks are also very prevalent in the same general periods that I'm speaking about. That is, early part of the year that we're in right now, and then from August onwards, especially in this case August to November, where we will see perhaps more so-called terrorist attacks or other violent episodes may be related to unrest, but again, this seems to be more related and focused towards the government. The July unrest probably was as well. We haven't seemed to reach any conclusions on what level was that insurgency, was it something else. Whatever happens this year, it will be much clearer. So again, looking a little unstable as regards peace and safety in the country in that way. Also on everyone's mind, of course, is what's happening with the pandemic. Well, what we've seen happening in the last month or two does fit with what the charts have predicted, so far so good. And that is that we did indeed see, as we all expected, the fourth wave appear, and we did see a much stronger resistance against it coming from this country. So we can see much of the same throughout most of this year, where there may well be further waves, but they won't be as strong in terms of hospitalization and death in this country that I'm referring to all the time. It looks consistently throughout most of the year that we remain on top of it, at the very least in terms of the resistance that we have through our infection and vaccination rate combined, presumably, and perhaps the mysterious other factors that people have speculated about that might explain why South Africa isn't as hard hit as many people expected it to be. All of that speculation, but what the charts show is that our fight continues to be strong and we continue to withstand being overwhelmed much more than other countries have as the year goes by. It does look like the September-October period, something like that, is a touch point, a danger point of some kind. There might be a stronger wave in that time. There might be a new variant that help explain why September-October does look a little bit more challenging than most of the rest of the year. But for the most part, we remain on top of it and we remain in relatively a healthy position, perhaps compared to much of the world and compared with what that much of the world has come to expect from this country. Especially in the first months of this year, all the way till the middle of the year, and in the period April through July, the world is very strongly focused on us. May be related to that. It might be that our scientists are again the ones to identify a new variant. Perhaps what happens this way around is we also become a better model for how we are able to deal with it in some way. Because whether it's by chance or whether it's by design, somehow we have seemed to handle the Omicron variant a lot better than most places in the world. Seems to be somewhat random and might be because everyone got infected by it. But either which way, it does look like the eyes of the world are on us. In fact, that is a lot more than just with regards to the pandemic. And it's in that period of April through June that we are very much involved in international affairs one way or the other. It usually means for better and for worse in astrology, but we usually see it in these days as forming new allies and allegiances, and frequently that also refers to getting new help from outside sources, but a very, very strong focus on our international image and changes in our international relationships at that time. It also looks like we can only start seeing the recovery of international tourism and our tourist economy in the third quarter of this year. Certainly, in general, the financial situation is improving until then, but especially in that sector, it is only then. And also in terms of our ability to go wherever we want and travel around, etc., really seems to be true in the third quarter of the year. In that period, we will also see more money coming into the country from investment and other new resources. So on the whole, economic recovery from the pandemic period expected in the third and fourth quarters of this year, and hopefully increasingly thereafter. In many ways, it's the fourth quarter that looks like a more familiar South Africa to us, and perhaps that is really showing the signs of things are finally getting back to normal. And normal, of course, includes everything. It means financially we're in a better off, and economically we're in a better off position. The government is unpredictable and a little bit seemingly unstable. Land matters are again on the table, as some of the local issues have been sidelined by the bigger stuff that's going on, but the land issue has never been far from being on the table. Changes to the constitution and all sorts of attempts that have been made to deal with that. That's very much back on the agenda in the last quarter of the year. And our own better sense of ourselves. What's really important is our self-image, our identity as South Africans, and our ability to unify under that identity. And that is also something that shows much more strongly in the last quarter of the year, which does suggest to me that we really are finding our feet again there. We face great problems of division and dividedness, a lot of it brought about by poor leadership in this country and the failure of attempts to create better unity because of the leadership's self-interest and their own infighting and lack of unity. As I've said before on this show, in the end we have to take those matters into our own hands. And as South Africans, we have demonstrated in the past that we have the ability to find unity in our diversity. And that seems to be something familiar resurfacing itself back in the last quarter of the year, as we begin to find our feet again and find so many good things about ourselves. That should also be in the sporting arena, where throughout the middle section of the year, it looks like there's still going to be some disappointments created by one thing or the other, perhaps pandemic issues, perhaps our own poor performance. But again, in the last quarter of the year, things are looking very much better in that regard as well, and there could be some important victories that help us feel a greater sense of unity in some way. We're feeling stronger, we're acting stronger in the last few months of the year. We can make a general goal for us all to work towards greater unity, not just for the sake of a rainbow nation or any idealism. We've been through a terrible crisis together for over 2 years by then, and we now know that it is in our own hands and up to us to try and get ourselves back on track. We now know that if we stand around waiting for government to do things, we frequently find ourselves in a worse situation. So we are perhaps better motivated than ever to find ways to create unity, to create better connectedness between us, better understanding between us, so that whatever challenges we face at the end of the year and next year with radical upheaval in the ANC and its government and its president, we are ready for it. We can find our own way to emerge stronger and take the country forward. We could be worried about who might replace Cyril Ramaphosa, and indeed we should be worried about that. But at the same time, we also need to try and see beyond that and realize we can't lurch from one crisis to another. Perhaps we need to come together to find a new way forward. We've done that in the past. What's stopping us now? Aries, your focus on this year is creativity and resourcefulness. Dig into your own resources, first of all, to get to your creativity. Things that you've wanted to do that you haven't done, things that you don't believe you can do. What the hell have you got to lose? Just go for it. Discover your own creativity and discover the new resources it can bring you, as well as all sorts of new resources. That's 22 for you. Taurus, it's all about spreading yourself further, reaching far and wide, venturing into new territories, but not unbalancing yourself. You can overdo it a little bit this year because there looks like lots of fun and pleasure to be had. There's also a lot of expense to be had, but you're in a strong position. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot. Taurus, it's all about balance in 2022 for you. Gemini, this year is all about aiming for the top and getting there. This is a year of ambition. Set them high, climb high, and you will get there. This is the year when you can make your wildest dreams come true. This is the year when you can come up with some brand new wild dreams. And most importantly, wild means stop at nothing. Maybe you're the leader we're looking for, or in your own world, you're the one who can stand out. So make sure you get to the top, Gemini, in 2022. Cancerians, you're all about your relationships, and this is the year of friendship and connection with you. Making new friends, making new connections, and for some of you, getting into new relationships, or some of you deepening your existing relationships. Focusing on people, learning that real life people, reconnecting with those people you've missed for so long. That's what's really important. You're going to do it this year. Leo, this is your year to clean house, to deal with what you've avoided or swept under the carpet. Just put aside and hope it go away. This is the time you can make it go away on your own terms. Getting rid of old baggage is what 2022 is all about for you, and you will find yourself free and liberated from it all at the end of the year. So dig in, get your hands dirty, get rid of it all. It will be a new year for you. Virgos, this is the year about putting yourself forward, putting yourself first and going for what you want. As it is, as a Virgo, you're always so busy with worrying about what everyone else wants. But your chart for this year really concentrates on putting the spotlight on yourself. Don't be shy. Step forward, step up, and put yourself in line for whatever it is. You deserve it. You're going to get it. Go for it. Libra, it's your year to get on top of financial matters, and you've got a really good chance to do it. So this is a time to develop a strategy to pay off debts, to clean up some old matters of some kind, and to find new resources of income because they want to come and find you. Your only challenge is just don't spend too much of it. It's a year of financial gain for you if you play your cards right and just get your house in order. You can make it happen. Scorpio, 2022 is your year to slay old demons, conquer bad habits, get rid of old addictions, behaviors, things that you know get in your way and have caused you hurt in the past. Now's your chance to eliminate them all, and on top of that, get support from those people closest to you who can bolster that strength and really make it happen. Finally, the time to get rid of all that old baggage. Good for 22. Sagittarius, your focus on this year is just on grounding yourself again. Over the last while, you've gone all sorts of places, and that's been great, but it's time to kind of get back down to earth, find your feet, find your ground, find your home territory. Just get back on solid ground. That's going to make everything else work for you. One key can unlock all the doors this year, Sagittarius, and that is solid ground. Make sure it's firm in 22. Capricorn, it's your year to open your heart. That means connecting with new people, but most importantly, expressing yourself in all sorts of new ways. It's time to find your creativity, use your creativity in all sorts of new ways, and especially in ways related to people. New connections is what that's all about. New friends, new lovers, and new ways of being you. Break that Capricorn mold. Aquarius, it's your year for taking better care of yourself. That means from everything as like health, which is an obvious way to take better care of yourself, just to taking care of your own basic wants and needs and making sure that you take care of those apart from all the groups and interesting other people that you're involved with at this time. Put your own needs first, take care of yourself in an unselfish way, and you'll be your best self in 22. Pisces, focus on your relationships this year, both your personal relationships and your professional relationships, and get a better quid pro quo happening. Make sure everything's happening two ways for you. You can make new connections this year, you can deepen your existing connections this year, and you can find what's really available to you from all these amazing people you're connected to. Don't just enjoy the relationship, don't be shy to ask yourself, what's in it for me? And 22 turns out to be a great year. Well, this year does look pretty challenging out there on the big front, but each of us can make our own goal to get to the end of it united. I'll see you next week at the same time. And the President's response has been, well, that was probably it. And the President's response has generally been